They thought I was just another numbers girl, so they fired me. What they didn't know? I own 90% of the company. It happened in Austin, Texas, just last fall. I was 38 and had quietly spent the last 7 years building our logistics division from the ground up. Not that anyone gave me credit for it. Then barged in Blake Carver, the Golden Boy COO, Harvard MBA and walking TED Talk. No knock. No respect. Just swagger, cologne, and a folder slapped onto my desk like a mic drop. Juliet, we need to talk. I paused mid-sentence, mid-projection. Charts and trends that had been consistently outperforming expectations, but apparently none of that mattered. But Blake never bothered learning what I actually did or who I really was. Just thought I was another background figure in the office. The kind of woman he could dismiss without consequence. We're restructuring, he said. The board wants new direction. I tilted my head. You're firing me? We're not making a scene here, he replied, smirking. You're being released from your position, effective immediately. No performance review, no warning, not a word about the record-breaking quarter my team just posted. He kept talking, something about me lacking executive presence, that I wasn't people-focused enough. His voice was smug, but all I could hear was the quiet hum of irony building behind my calm smile. I stood slowly, closed the folder, and said, You might want to check the shareholder breakdown before you send out any announcements. That's when he froze. Because what Blake didn't know was that I wasn't just a spreadsheet manager. I was the majority shareholder, the controlling vote, the real owner. And now he worked for me. Blake's eyes narrowed. He was waiting for me to cry, panic, maybe even plead. But I dealt with too many over-promoted boys with fragile egos to let this one see me flinch. I'll need your laptop and badge by end of day, he said, trying to sound authoritative. Your access ends at 5, severance infos with HR as usual. I stood calm and measured and extended my hand. Thanks for the clarity. He hesitated, then shook it like he was declaring victory. Blake strutted out with the same smug grin he wore during his morning mirror pep talks. He had no idea I was more than just another division head, and no one else in that glass fishbowl of an office did either. But 2 weeks earlier, everything changed. I'd executed a strategic acquisition, quietly, a private sale that gave me controlling interest in the company my father helped build from the ground up, the same company Blake just kicked me out of. I glanced at the photo on my desk, Dad grinning next to me at the ribbon cutting of our first West Coast office. He used to say, wait for the moment, and when it comes, don't blink. So I didn't. I packed lightly, just the photo, a well-worn notebook, and my favorite coffee mug. Outside my office, the silence was deafening. Eyes darted up from screens, then away. Some looked confused, others uncomfortable. A few pitied me. Let them wonder. I walked out into the Texas sun, feeling 20 pounds lighter. They thought I'd been buried, but really, they just cleared my runway. I pulled out my phone and texted my attorney. It's time, let's move. He replied almost instantly. Understood, we can call a shareholder vote by Friday. I looked back once at the shiny facade behind me. Blake thought he ended my career. But the next time I walked through those doors, I wouldn't be wearing a badge. I'd be sitting at the head of the table, as the owner, and I wouldn't just smile. I'd run the meeting. If you felt that shift of power, like I did, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The next part? Let's just say Blake's about to learn what happens when the spreadsheet girl owns the boardroom. My father didn't just leave me a company, he left me his gift for timing. And patience. 2 weeks before Blake Carver tossed me out like yesterday's quarterly report, I was sitting in an old office downtown, lined with polished mahogany, the air scented with leather, aging books, and quiet authority. Across from me sat Walter Langston, our family's attorney since I was a kid riding around the office on a tricycle. He slid a thick envelope across the desk and folded his hands. Your father was very clear, Juliet, he said. You turned 38 in 2 days. He wanted you to open this on your birthday. I raised an eyebrow. A birthday card? A scavenger hunt for hidden stocks? He smiled like someone who knew more than he let on. I didn't open it right away. I waited, just like Dad used to wait for the perfect moment to speak his mind. On the morning of my birthday, I sat in his favorite leather chair by the window. Sunlight filtered through the blinds like it always did when he'd sip coffee and read the paper, pretending the world made sense in black and white. I opened it with a calm I didn't feel. The envelope held two things: a gold-sealed legal document and a handwritten letter in Dad's tidy, deliberate script. Juliet, if you're reading this, it means you've turned 38. I've watched you work harder than anyone, take less credit than you deserved, and stay quiet when louder voices took up all the air. I also watched what happened after I passed. I feared it might go this way, so I made sure you'd have more than just a seat at the table. I gave you the table. I froze, my fingers trembled. I had to put the letter down just to breathe. The trust document was airtight, notarized final. My father never sold his 90% controlling stake. He kept it and placed it all in my name, effective on my 38th birthday. 90%, full voting power, instant control. I read it once, then again, then a third time just to be sure. I wasn't just a shareholder. I was the company. Still in my pajamas, I called Langston. "Is this real?" I whispered. "As real as it gets," he replied without hesitation. "Your father set it up carefully. The board doesn't know. Unless you tell them, they won't." I sat in stunned silence. I had been trying to earn my place when I already held the keys. "Why now?" I asked. "Your father wanted you to experience the company first," Langston said gently, "to see if you truly wanted it, to see who revealed themselves." And they had. Blake. The board. Everyone who assumed I was just a glorified analyst. He knew they'd overlook me, underestimate me, try to box me out. And he knew I wouldn't walk away. The next morning, I called Langston again. "We're calling a shareholders meeting," I said, "but don't notify the board yet, not until I say so." He paused. "Juliet, what exactly do you have planned?" I looked out at downtown Austin. The city kept buzzing like nothing had changed. "I plan to walk into that boardroom," I said, "and show them exactly who they tried to dismiss." I ignored HR's follow-ups, skipped the exit interview, didn't return a single email. Instead, I met Langston at a quiet coffee shop tucked into a side street, the kind of place where no one asks for job titles. He sipped a cappuccino, a folder in front of him. "You're about to drop a grenade into their boardroom," he said, tapping the folder. I didn't blink. They pulled the pin when they fired me. He nodded. Inside the folder was the official filing, notice of a special shareholders meeting, executive leadership review on the agenda. Blake didn't see it coming. That was the point. His whole playbook was swagger, projection, just enough knowledge to intimidate those who wouldn't fight back. But his confidence? It was a house of cards. And I was the breeze. The meeting was set for Tuesday. Not too soon to raise suspicion, not too late to let them build a defense. My final stop that day was Caroline Winters, the quiet keeper of my father's trust. She didn't bother with small talk. She opened her file, glanced at me, and said, "Are we ready to take it back?" I smiled. "We're not just taking it back," I said. "We're taking over." She slid the folder across the desk like she was delivering military intel. Caroline Winters, my father's most trusted advisor, looked me dead in the eye. "I've watched that man dismantle your father's legacy piece by piece, Juliet," she said, voice low and firm. "You owe him no courtesy." Inside the folder, internal audits, ownership certificates, voting records, and an employee culture report that read like a slow-motion train wreck. Staff satisfaction? Down 38%. Departmental turnover? Up 47%. HR complaints? Buried like secrets in a locked drawer. "Blake's been manipulating short-term gains to hide long-term incompetence," Caroline added, not blinking. "If it continues for 2 more years, the company collapses." I sat in silence and let the weight of it settle over me, into my bones. "I'm not going to yell," I said finally. "I won't gloat." "You won't have to," she replied with a dry smile. Let the numbers speak. As I left her office, I passed an old portrait hanging in the hallway, my father standing proudly outside our original headquarters, one hand resting protectively on the shoulder of a little girl in a red dress, me. He looked younger than I ever remembered, steady, almost like he knew this day would come. By Monday, the office rumor mill was in overdrive. My phone was a flood of texts. Are you okay? What happened? Blake's acting like he got promoted or something. HR won't say a word. It's weird. I didn't answer. Not yet. Let them wonder. Let Blake bask in it. The higher he felt, the sweeter the drop. That evening, I pulled out a navy blue suit I had bought 5 years ago for a dream job that never materialized. It still fit, like it had been waiting for this. I rehearsed what I'd say, not a speech, just a few words, sharp, clean, no embellishment, just truth. Tuesday morning, I arrived 5 minutes early, alone, no entourage, just me, a folder, and the law. At the front desk, the receptionist glanced up, froze. Juliet? I smiled. Good morning. Upstairs, Langston was already waiting near the elevators, calm and collected as always. They're in there, he said. Blake's in the middle of a strategy session. Thinks he's got it all figured out. I adjusted my jacket, took a deep breath, and nodded. Not for long. We walked together toward the frosted glass doors of the boardroom. When I opened them, the silence hit like a pin dropped into gasoline. The room had been buzzing, casual banter, chuckles, someone flipping through the printed agenda. It stopped the second I stepped in. Blake was mid-sentence, pacing like a tech bro on stage. He turned, eyes landing on me. His face twitched, confused, irritated, and then stunned. Juliet? His voice rose. This meeting is for board members only. I smiled politely, walked to the head of the table, pulled out the chair, set down my folder. Exactly, I said and took my seat. Dead silence. Blake blinked at the papers, then at me. Back to the room, searching for someone to laugh and call this a prank. No one did. He tried again, louder. As I said, employees aren't allowed in these sessions. I met his gaze, held it. I'm not an employee, I said, pausing just long enough for it to sting. I'm the majority shareholder. The temperature dropped 5 degrees. Chairs straightened. Eyes widened. Even Mr. Dalton, our oldest board member, leaned in and adjusted his glasses. He reached for the top document in the folder, brows furrowing as he scanned the gold seal. This accurate? He asked, voice gravelly. It is, I confirmed. The trust transferred 90% of my father's shares to me on my 38th birthday. Everything's filed and notarized. You'll find it all in compliance. Blake looked like someone had yanked his power cord mid-presentation. His jaw clenched, his cheeks flushed in blotchy waves. For once he had no words. I had waited long enough. And now, the real meeting could begin. As expected, Blake turned to insults, the last refuge of a man cornered by truth and stripped of illusion. You can't be serious, he scoffed. This is personal. A grudge. A stunt. I remained seated, calm. It's not a grudge. It's accountability. My father trusted me with this because he knew what this place could become without someone watching. That landed. I felt the ripple travel down the table. No one spoke, but I saw the recognition in their eyes. Blake hadn't led the company with vision. He had fed his ego and built a hollow empire. The numbers didn't lie. His curtain was slipping, thread by thread. I opened the second folder. This meeting was called to conduct a formal review of the company's executive leadership, beginning with the office of the CEO. Blake jumped to his feet. This is a coup! I looked at him evenly. I'm not asking. My voice didn't rise, but the silence did. I began distributing copies of the financial report. Let's talk performance. No drama, no flair, just facts. Employee satisfaction has dropped 38%. Departmental turnover is up 47%. HR has 3 active, unresolved discrimination claims. I watched their faces shift as the weight of it set in. Some squirmed, others glanced at each other. Nobody spoke. In the same quarter, our competitors reported growth. I continued. We stayed flat. That's not market fluctuation. That's mismanagement. Then I turned to the next section. Excessive spending on executive perks, travel reimbursements with no documentation, bonuses approved during a hiring freeze, all under Blake's directive. Blake's face flushed. "You're twisting the numbers," he barked. "You're making them fit your narrative." I didn't blink. "I don't have to twist anything, the truth is loud enough." He looked around for backup. No one moved. "You counted on no one having the authority to challenge you," I said, letting my thought linger in the air. "That assumption ends today." I slid the final folder forward. "This is a formal motion to remove Blake Carver as CEO, effective immediately, pending final documentation." The boardroom went still, so quiet I could hear the nervous shift of a leather chair. The board secretary leaned toward me and whispered, "You don't need a second?" "No," I said. "I hold 90% of the voting power." Dalton adjusted his glasses. "With that majority, the motion carries automatically. It's official." Blake slammed his fist on the table. "This is a joke, a power grab." I looked at him the same way I had the day he fired me. Calm. Unshaken. "You taught me how to handle being dismissed," I said. "Now it's your turn." He stood there, stunned, shoulders drooping under the weight of power he no longer held. No one reached out to stop him as he walked toward the door. His exit was quiet. Fine. The door clicked shut behind him. I looked back at the board. This company deserves better. So do its people. That starts today. Dalton leaned back and nodded. "Welcome back, Juliet." No applause followed. No music swelled. Just quiet acknowledgement that power had shifted for good. The next day wasn't about revenge. It was about repair. I didn't move into the CEO office that morning. Didn't change the nameplate. Didn't strut down the hallway or bask in any glory. The company wasn't fixed by taking a bigger desk. It had to be rebuilt from the inside. The following Monday, I called an all-hands meeting. Not in some flashy hall, but in the same conference room where Blake had once handed out stale praise and inflated projections to the same three men. But this time, the atmosphere was different. People filed in slowly. Whispers, nervous glances. Uncertainty hung in the air like static before a storm. The front rows were empty. No one wanted to assume anything. I stepped to the front with just a black notebook. No slides, no buzzwords, just me. I cleared my throat. "Some of you know who I am," I said. "Some of you only know the version someone else told you. Today I want to tell you for myself." And then we began. Let me start by saying this. I didn't come back to take control. I came back to rebuild trust. That made a few people actually look up. Not a nod, not a smile, just attention. "This company wasn't built on titles," I said. "It was built on your ideas, your late nights, your belief that what we were creating actually mattered." I scanned the room. Familiar faces, new ones too, some cautiously curious, others guarded. "I used to eat lunch with the engineering team," I continued. "I got strategy proposals from junior analysts that the last exec team never even opened. Receptionists, who never got so much as a birthday card, kept this place running like clockwork." I let that breathe. Somewhere along the way, we lost that. Then, quietly, I smiled. Last week someone told me I wasn't leadership material, that I didn't belong here. And to be honest, a few nervous chuckles. The tension loosened. They weren't entirely wrong. I don't clap for showmanship. I don't kiss rings. I don't pretend problems don't exist. I build, and real leadership, it doesn't wear a title, it listens. And for the next 2 weeks, that's all I did. I didn't barricade myself in some shiny corner office. I walked the halls, sat in break rooms, asked questions, and stayed quiet long enough to hear the answers. What's broken? What's missing? Who's taking credit and who's doing the actual work? The patterns emerged fast. Some people strutted around, bloated with unearned authority. Others were patching holes with duct tape and determination, holding entire teams together with zero recognition. So I started moving pieces. Quietly, but deliberately. I promoted Maya, a former customer service rep who'd been running her team unofficially for over a year. Her old boss had marked her as average. Now, Maya has a door with her name on it and a team of her own. I brought Kevin back, an engineer who'd left after being passed over in favor of someone louder but less capable. He stepped into my office like it was a dream. "Are you serious?" he asked. "Dead serious," I told him. "Come fix what they broke." I overhauled HR. Dusty complaint files were pulled off shelves. I read through every one of them, met with the people who thought no one ever would. The silent reports, the quiet resignations. Middle managers who ruled through manipulation, gaslighting, and fear, gone. No grand exits, just accountability. Then, I finally launched something that had been sitting in my father's notebook for years, the People First Initiative. A system to recognize the unseen, to reward creativity, promote fairness, and honor the ones who solve more problems than they cause. The quiet innovators, the overlooked geniuses, the people too busy doing the work to brag in meetings. No more whisper networks, no more locked doors, no more we're a family speeches while ignoring real issues. Just real people, doing real work, finally getting real credit. One night around 9 p.m., I was walking the halls alone. It used to feel sterile here, like success had a dress code and bedtime. But now? I heard laughter in a conference room, someone microwaving leftovers while cracking jokes on Slack. Plants on desks were actually alive again. One had a sticky note that read, "Water me, I'd like to live." Like all of us. Passing the engineering bullpen, I noticed a whiteboard tucked behind the main desk. In blue marker, scrawled small in the corner. She came back, twice underlined. She didn't fire Martin, she just came back. I stood there, staring for a long moment. No press release, no title change, no boardroom takedown could match that. That was the win. The next Monday, I finally walked into the CEO's office. Not because I had something to prove, but because I had something to restore. I didn't bring much, no fancy decor, no giant framed photos. Just one picture. My father and me on opening day outside the very first office. He was laughing, I was 7, my cheeks were sticky with something, probably jelly. I placed it in the corner of the desk and sat down. Not in triumph, but in purpose. This wasn't a takeover. It was a beginning. It felt like a homecoming. They thought they had seen the last of me when they fired me. But I returned, exactly 1 year later, not as an employee, as their future. I stood once more at the same glass doors, where I had once exited with a cardboard box and a composed smile. Only now I wore a fitted navy suit, carried a slim black folder, and held the full weight of the company's direction in my hands. The receptionist looked up and immediately stood. "Miss Wren, good morning." "Elena," I replied, offering a soft smile. "We're all on the same team now." She smiled back, genuinely this time, not the forced professional kind I used to see. Upstairs the layout hadn't changed. The same polished walnut doors, the same skyline stretching out over downtown Austin. But everything else felt different. The air had shifted, lighter now. People didn't flinch when someone from the C-suite walked past. They looked up, said hello, stopped pretending to be invisible. I'd kept Martin's old office mostly intact. No grand desk with golden nameplates, no oversized monitors broadcasting metrics like a stock floor, and absolutely no framed leadership quotes hanging above a leather throne. Just a clean walnut desk, a pair of comfortable chairs, and photos lining the walls. Of us, not me. Launch days, hackathons, office birthday parties, little moments that mattered far more than Martin ever realized. The only portrait behind my desk was of my father, not to glorify him, but to guide me. That morning, we reviewed our quarterly report. Best numbers we'd seen in 5 years. Customer satisfaction was up 23%, employee retention up 41%, revenue, highest on record. But that's not what stayed with me. It was how we got there. Not through pressure, not through fake metrics or 11 p.m. panic emails asking people to bleed for bonuses they'd never see. We got there together, with honesty, with transparency. People weren't whispering over coffee anymore. They were speaking in open rooms and being heard. Good people weren't just retained, they were empowered. Authority wasn't hoarded. We passed the mic. For the first time in a long time, this place felt human again. There was a knock at the door. "Come in," I called. Maya stepped inside, clipboard in hand, our head of client experience now, still wearing her beat-up Converse. We never told people they needed to dress like bankers to be great here. "You ready?" she asked, grinning under her glasses. "They're all waiting in the conference room." I grabbed my folder and followed her down the hallway. The boardroom wasn't new, but the faces were. Half the board were women now, a few in their 40s, others in their 50s, sales, engineering, design, all represented. No more room full of identical suits talking in circles and calling it strategy. At the center of the table sat Richard Tanaka, our newest strategic advisor. Smart, measured, a man who spoke less but always meant more, the kind of quiet wisdom my dad would have respected. "Elena," Richard said, nodding as I took my seat, "would you say a few words before we begin?" I hadn't planned to, but maybe that's why it mattered. I stood, the room hushed. But this time it wasn't pressure I felt. It was trust. "I want to thank every one of you," I said, "for believing in something different, for choosing the hard road when staying comfortable would have been easier." I smiled. Once, I was told I wasn't leadership material. There were chuckles, a few nods. "But leadership," I continued, "isn't about titles or upgrades to first class. It's about vision, accountability, and the courage to say the uncomfortable thing when it needs to be said." I glanced at the portrait behind me. My father, holding the same red ribbon from our first opening day. "He built this company on those principles," I said, "and I'm proud to say we're finally living them again." No cheers, no standing ovation, just soft, sustained applause, the kind that lasts longer than the sound itself. Later that afternoon, I took the long walk back to my office. Stopped by marketing, an intern beaming after wrapping her first full campaign. Swung through product, developers laughing over half-sketched ideas and half-eaten snacks. And for the first time in years, I didn't just see employees. I saw a family, rebuilt, reborn. And this time, I wasn't the one proving I belonged. I was simply leading us home. Not exhausted, not guarded, just alive. On the last day of one intern's rotation, someone brought cupcakes to the break room. I grabbed one, pulled up a chair, and spent 20 minutes listening to a group of interns talk about nothing particularly important. And that was leadership too. Not always the big vision, sometimes it's presence, being there, creating a space where people can simply exist without fear. I didn't come back to settle scores. I came back to give good people a real shot. To build a culture where kindness wasn't mistaken for weakness, where the soft-spoken engineer didn't get passed over, where client support wasn't treated like a cul-de-sac career, where respect, not fear, was the currency of influence. They fired me a year ago, smiling, delivering some hollow line about new vision. And now? Now we have vision for real. But this time, it doesn't belong to one person in a corner office. It belongs to everyone in the room. This story isn't just mine. It belongs to anyone who's ever been underestimated, overlooked, or quietly pushed aside. So drop a comment below, let me know what part of this hit home for you. Tell me about your own comeback, your quiet strength, or that moment you realized your voice mattered. I read every one. And if you felt something from this journey, subscribe, not for me, but for us. For the stories that don't always get told, for the ones that don't end with revenge, but with rebuilding, with real leadership, with doing the right thing, even when no one's watching. My advice? Don't waste your energy proving yourself to people who never intended to see you. Build something bigger, something true. Leadership isn't loud. It doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it's sitting in a break room with a cupcake, listening to someone who just needed to be heard. Whatever you're working toward, keep going. Stay kind, stay steady, and when your moment comes, don't flinch. Because one day, you'll walk back through those same doors. Not for revenge, but to show them what leadership really looks like.